Hello, people. How's it going? You ever plan something that just doesn't go haywire because you can't get out of your own way and so on and so forth? That's what this video about Gettysburg has been like. It is not coming out the way I wanted it to come out. It's my own fault. I will do better next time. Better next time. So I'm gonna read because I want to, and because I want to do this. I'm not. All excuses. Just do it, David. After his success at Chancellorsville in Virginia in May 1863, General Lee led his Confederate forces through Shenandoah Valley to begin the Gettysburg campaign. His second attempt to invade the North, which would have been Antietam, by the way, in Maryland, that was his first. His second attempt, as I said, second attempt to invasion of the North. With Lee's army in high spirits, he intended to shift the focus of the summer campaign from war-ravaged Northern Virginia in the hopes of penetrating as far as Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia. Yeah, get that. Which he hoped would convince Northern politicians to abandon their prosecution of the war. It wasn't going to happen generally. You really thought way too highly of your army and the Northern resolve to win the war. You really did. Anyway. My President Abraham Lincoln initially prodded Major General Joseph Hooker to move his Union forces in pursuit of Lee, but relieved Hooker of his command just 3 days before battle, replacing him with Meade. Actually, it was more like, Hooker, please relieve me of this, please. And, well, after, as I've said in the last video, they wanted Reynolds, General Reynolds to run it, but he said, no, thank you. I will stay in the 1st, 3rd, and 11th Corps. Thank you very much. And then they forced it on poor General Meade, who was in charge of the 1st Corps. Well, he wasn't in. You get the idea. July 1, 1863, as Lee's forces moved on Gettysburg in hopes of destroying the Union Army, the two armies initially collided, and the battle commenced. Low ridges to the northwest of Gettysburg were initially defended by a Union cavalry division under Brigadier General John Buford, and soon reinforced with 2 corps of Union infantry. 2 large Confederate corps assaulted them from the northwest and north, however, collapsing the hastily developed Union lines, leading them to retreat through the streets of Gettysburg to the hills just south of the city. Basically, Buford did everything right on the first day. I mean, he was outnumbered, outgunned, and everything else, but he held his ground as long as he could until John Reynolds could bring his corps there to Gettysburg. But on the second day, which is where I'm up to now, on the second day of battle, on July 2nd, the Union lines was held out in a defensive formation resembling the fishhook, as I said yesterday. In the late afternoon, Lee launched a heavy assault on the Union left flank, leading to fierce fighting at Little Round Top, the Wheat Field, Devil's Den, and the Peach Orchard. Watch the movie Gettysburg. It is a very good rendering of that, the basically Little Round Top and Chamberlain and the 20th Maine. I mean, it is a good movie, a little off here and there, but for the most part, that was what the fighting was like, and it really was. It was the end of the line. Chamberlain literally could go nowhere. He said, "You have to stay here." As Strong Vincent said of New York, "You can't move. You are not allowed to move." And this was the Confederate General Hood in Longstreet's division, Corps. This was part of Longstreet's Corps. This is General Hood. This is. If you've ever seen the movie, I can't explain all this from it very well. If you watch the movie, it really does show very, very well what that battle was like, of getting to Little Round Top and fighting through Devil's Den and the cornfield and the wheat field. And it doesn't show Dan Sickles royally screwing it up almost, because he decided, I think I'm going to move. I'm going to leave a big gap so the enemy can get through. Knucklehead. Anyway, on the Union right flank, Confederate demonstrations escalated into a full-scale assault on Culp's Hill. There wasn't just Little Round Top that was being fought at this time. There was another on Culp's Hill, which was Ewell, if I remember correctly, holding his ground, trying to assault. And Both assaults just didn't, they failed. Let's just bluntly put it, as much as they wanted to overcome it, it wasn't going to happen. But the Union had the high ground. They had the better position. They were not going anywhere. Despite incurring significant losses, Union forces held their lines. Well, of course they did. They had the better position. Chamberlain wasn't going to go anywhere. I mean, Hood was correct. General Hood of the Confederacy. The ground is terrible. You want me to go through rocks and boulders and all kinds of terrible ground that my men cannot easily get over and stuff, and they couldn't. It was the terrain was terrible. What they had to go up. I mean, literally, it was. Terrain is always important. That's what Buford realized when he first got there. This is good ground. We just have to remain to hold this good ground and let Lee come to us. And Lee was coming, and he knew they were coming. On the third day of the battle, July 3rd, fighting resumed on Cold Sill. Cavalry battles raged in the east and the south of Gettysburg, and this is where General Stuart, and General Custer were fighting. This is where there is a move, I believe it's if you died there with their boots on, I believe shows this scene of him fighting Stuart. This is Custer versus Stuart, and they won. Let's see. I guess, but the main military engagement was a dramatic Confederate infantry assault of approximately 12,000 Confederate troops who attacked the center of the Union line at Cemetery Ridge. Is what is known as Pickett's Charge. Pickett gets blamed for this, and he shouldn't. There was no way that many men were going to be able to cross almost a mile of open ground against a well-fortified, well-entrenched, well-manned, and well-protected army. It wasn't going to happen. Once again, Lee's hubris ruined it, and he literally destroyed Pickett's division, and Pickett never forgave him. I mean, the scene in the movie where he says, General Lee, I have no division, he wasn't lying. There was nothing left. Let's see. Pickett's charge. The Confederate charge was repelled by the Union rifle and artillery fire, leading to the great Confederate losses. They almost got there, though. I mean, there is, in the movie, it is demonstrated where General Armistead of the Confederacy is literally the high water mark, got to the Union lines and crossed them. But by then, they were literally spent. And there just wasn't enough of them to hold it. It was in the movie. Look, watch the movie. The movie has its flaws, but the movie is very good at demonstrating just what the battle was about and what the personality and the conflicts were about. It is a little more southern showing than the Union side. This is true, but it does a good job anyway. It does a job despite itself. Let's see, blah blah blah. Let's see. But yeah, it never should have happened. General Lee basically he convinced himself that he can take a open field charge. It wasn't going to happen. The Union was too entrenched. The Union, under Hancock, General Hancock was there, and he wasn't going anywhere. Hancock was not going to move. He's not called Hancock the Superb for that loud reason. He was brilliant. He was a great general. He really was. The belligerents, as I said, United States and the Confederacy, commanders, leaders, General Meade, of course, of the Union, Robert E. Lee of the Confederacy, units involved, the Army of Potomac, the Union, Army of Northern Virginia, the Confederacy. The strengths, over 93,000 to 104,000 on the Union side, 65 to 75,000 on the Confederacy side. 360 artillery pieces, Union, 37 cavalry regiments, Union, 270 artillery pieces, Confederacy, over 9,000 cavalry. This is also where Alexander, the artillerist, you see him in the movie. He's the guy saying, General, I can't keep shooting all this artillery. I'm going to run out of ammunition eventually. I am running out now. I can't keep this up. And the casualties and losses were 23,000 on the Union side. This is killed, wounded, missing, captured. 23 to 28,000 on the Confederacy side. Same thing, killed, wounded, captured while missing. I mean, the Battle of Gettysburg, the Union Major General George Meade, Army of the Potomac, defeated the armies by Robert E. Lee, and it halted. A lot of people say that at the same time, down in Vicksburg, Mississippi, General Grant and General Sherman were about to force the surrender of Vicksburg. A lot of people forget about the Vicksburg campaign. The Vicksburg campaign probably caused more problems and more a sense of defeat than Gettysburg did. I mean, they didn't capture. They had control. Grant did have control of the Mississippi, most of it anyway. Now, it did cut the Confederacy in half. But I think without the two battles, it would have. Is where the Confederacy was doomed. Not just one battle. I think they needed both of them. But let's see. Let's see anything interesting, more interesting. Anyway, see, this movie really does. This movie really does demonstrate the chaos of the first day. The chaos of the fact that we know they're coming. Buford knew they were coming, and it was he who arrived first, and it was I forget who the first knows. But then sorry, easily distracted by birds on my theater. It shows a good. I always view a lot of the history movies. I view more as character studies and more as historical studies. It's not going to be perfectly told. Gettysburg is not a perfect movie, and it's not. It's far better than the one they made, Gods and Generals, which is a prequel to this battle, which is. I might do that one just for the fun of it. But Lee should have listened to Longstreet on the second, all 3 days actually. I mean, he knew full well what they were up against. And Lee was just so convinced of his invincibility in the Union, it just wasn't going to work. Well, he also figured that Meade is just new to command. This is an entire army. He'll have to organize. Meade just told his generals, "Okay, this is a good place to fight. Let's fight." Meade was a very good general. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that he wasn't. He was a very good general, and he served out the rest of the war, being the commander of the Army of the Potomac. He didn't go anywhere. I do wish I could find a book on when Stuart and Custer fought, because they did fight. There was a cavalry battle. Once Stuart finally decided to show up later the second day, but watching the 20th Maine with Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, General, or Lieutenant Colonel. Was it Colonel or Lieutenant Colonel? I think it was a Colonel, I believe. Still, it is very well told. I mean, that is the 15th Alabama they're fighting against, by the way. I believe it's Colonel Haskell, I believe. But it's done very well. It might not be completely as actually happened, because he did write about it a few times in Chamberlain. But the fighting is very well done. The scenes are well done. I mean, it really does give you a feel of what the chaos of the battle, because there's a lot of smoke everywhere. I mean, there is smoke everywhere from the guns, from the cannons, from the musket fire. You literally are fighting blind half the time. It's told very well. Jeff Daniels as Chamberlain was brilliant. I mean, that was probably some of the most brilliant casting done, was making him Chamberlain, because he does a very good job. By the way, he had more than just his brother Tom at there too. I think he had two other brothers who were also at Little Round Top. But they only have one. They only show one brother, but okay. I think they had a brother there. Martin Sheen does a good job as Robert E. Lee. I think he does a little better job than I forget who did him in the other movie. Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall just doesn't work. Martin Sheen works as Robert E. Lee. And Longstreet is done very well. He was correct. We can't do this. We're going to get wiped out. We're going to lose badly. And Lee just wasn't going to listen. Meade was smart enough to realize, okay, let my generals fight this battle. And he realized, okay, we can win this. This is good ground. I know I keep going back and forth with this movie, but this movie probably will give you a better idea, other than Culp's Hill, because Culp's Hill is never mentioned. And the battle between Stewart and Custer is never mentioned. But it does show a good character study of the different generals and the different personalities and of the battle itself. It gives you an idea of the scope of the battle. I mean, again, this was over almost over 50,000 casualties combined. It was the bloodiest battle of the war. I mean, it was a turning point. It was a turning point, but I think without Vicksburg, I think it would have been a turning point, but not as important. Does that make sense? But it was. My throat is dry. Probably talking too fast. I mean, Hood was wounded. He survived. I mean, he survives to the end of the war. I mean, Ewell survives to the end of the war. Pickett really does not deserve the criticism he gets. He was a good, competent general. Unfortunately, he had a general above him that literally destroyed his division. He literally destroyed it. There wasn't anything left. By the time they got to the high water mark, as it's called, there was not a whole lot left of Pickett's division. It was literally almost wiped out. I'm gonna probably do one on books next anyway. But the first Minnesota is there. I am from Minnesota. That's where I live. The first Minnesota was there. They fought the second day. I don't think the first day. Second day and the third day, they were almost completely destroyed. I think by the time they were done, there was I think at least 30 people left, if I remember correctly. I'm going off the top of my head. But there's an excellent book, Richard Moe's The Last Full Measure, about the first Minnesota. There's a Pale Horse at Plum Run about, I believe, third day of Gettysburg. Very good books on this. Excuse me. I mean, Minnesota was there. I mean, first Minnesota is well, it should be better remembered, but it's not. A lot of the movie doesn't, of course, to show all the battle parts and all the battle scenes and all the moments. It doesn't show Sickles almost royally blowing it. Royally. The problem with Sickles was that he thought he knew better. And so he broke up the fishhook, leaving a giant gap between up here and up here. And he's down here in the peach orchard of the wheat field. And it's like, you realize you've just left a gap that lets the enemy in, right there, dumbass? I mean, yeah. Dan Sickles was something. I mean, he was a character in himself. But he was a political general. He got his rank because he was politics. I keep hitting that. But he eventually went back. Sort of. Then they had to refuse the line down there, and it just he almost could have lost the battle for the Union and given it to the Confederacy. But Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain is portrayed very well. Hancock is portrayed very, very well on the third day. Richard Anderson. John Anderson. The guy who played, you know who I'm talking about. It drives me nuts. Let's see. Stephen Lang plays Pickett very well. He does Pickett far better than he does Stonewall Jackson in the prequel movie. Let's see. Sam Elliott, of course, does very well. It's not here. Bummer. I think it's Richard Anderson. I think that's his name, Richard Anderson. Richard or John Anderson. Look at that. But he does Meade very well. Trying to think of anybody else worth noting at this very moment. The battle was far more complicated, of course, and more vast and engaging than this movie will ever do. But this movie is, if you want to understand Gettysburg, if you really do want to understand, at least given an idea of the scope of this battle and the importance of this battle, this is a good movie to watch. This is also my movie review for the movie. But yes, anyway, but first Minnesota was there. You know, they were there, and they almost ended up all remaining there, dead. But anyway. I mean, anyway, I don't want to be rambling too much, and I don't want to repeat myself too much. But anyway, if you like, well, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hopefully, I wasn't too rambly. I should have done a little better on this. I didn't plan this one very well, but I'm going to keep trying to plan it very well because I like history. I like to be able to teach it better, and I'm not there yet. I may not get there for a long time, but I'm going to get there somehow. I like history. What are you going to do? I'm a nerd. I'm a dork. I'm an intellectual snob when you watch me. Anyway, behave yourselves, people, because you know I'm never going to. Later.